I'm Samantha, 42, and last Christmas changed our family forever. My mother Martha's voice cut through the festive dining room like ice. You're not my granddaughter, you never will be. Get out of my house. Lily, my 2-year-old adopted daughter, froze as tears streamed down her face. My husband James gasped. Everyone else sat in stunned silence. What haunts me most wasn't just her cruel words, but the cold smile that followed. This wasn't a momentary lapse. It was calculated. And that's when I knew this war had just begun. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button if you've ever had to stand up to toxic family, and subscribe to join our community of survivors. Now, let me take you back to where this painful journey began. Martha Collins had always been the type of mother who believed her way was the only way. Growing up, I lived under her constant scrutiny. My grades were never quite high enough, my friends never quite good enough, and my ambitions never aligned with her vision for me. She wanted me to become a lawyer like her, marry someone from her approved social circle, and live within a 5-mile radius of her home. Instead, I became a high school English teacher, fell in love with James, a landscape architect she deemed too artistic to be stable, and moved 40 minutes away to a modest suburb she considered beneath our family's status. You're throwing away every advantage I've given you, she'd say during our weekly phone calls that I dreaded but maintained out of some misplaced sense of duty. Despite her disapproval, James and I married when I was 32. Martha wore black to the wedding and told several guests she was in mourning for her daughter's potential. Still, we were happy and immediately started trying for a baby, assuming it would happen easily. It didn't. Month after month, negative pregnancy tests piled up alongside mounting medical bills. 3 rounds of IVF drained our savings and left nothing but heartbreak. Each failure seemed to please Martha, who'd say things like, "Perhaps this is nature's way of telling you that you chose the wrong path." After 5 years of trying, we began considering adoption. Martha was horrified. "Why would you want to raise someone else's mistake?" she asked during Sunday dinner. "You have no idea what kind of genetic issues you'd be bringing into the family." We ignored her and began the lengthy adoption process. After 18 months of paperwork, home studies, and emotional roller coasters, we met Lily, a quiet 9-year-old with intelligent eyes and a hesitant smile. She'd been in foster care since age 6, bounced between 3 different homes after her mother died of an overdose and her father disappeared. The moment we met, something clicked. She showed me her favorite book, The Secret Garden, and I knew she was meant to be our daughter. Lily's adjustment wasn't easy. The first few months were filled with midnight terrors, hoarding food in her bedroom, and testing our commitment with small acts of defiance. She'd been abandoned too many times to trust easily, but slowly, day by day, our bonds strengthened. I'll never forget the first time she called me Mom. It happened naturally as I was bandaging her knee after a bike fall. The word hung in the air between us like a precious gift, and we both pretended not to notice the tears in each other's eyes. Martha maintained a cool distance during this time. She declined to attend Lily's adoption finalization ceremony, claiming a dental appointment that couldn't be rescheduled. When she finally agreed to meet Lily 3 months after she came home with us, her greeting was tepid at best. "Well, she seems clean enough," Martha said, as though Lily wasn't standing right there. "I suppose she'll do." I noticed the small ways Martha excluded Lily, how family photos with Lily mysteriously never made it to Martha's mantle, how she'd send birthday cards addressed only to James and me, how she'd speak about real family whenever adoption came up in conversation. "Blood is what binds a true family, Samantha," she'd say. "You can play house all you want, but some things can't be manufactured." I dismissed these comments, believing Martha would eventually warm to Lily once she got to know her. I was determined to build that bridge, even as James warned me that my mother might never cross it. The first major betrayal came 6 months after Lily's adoption. I discovered that during a rare afternoon when Martha had offered to watch Lily, she had secretly swabbed the inside of Lily's cheek for a DNA test. "What on earth possessed you to do that?" I confronted her, shaking with rage after finding the test confirmation email she'd accidentally left open on her iPad. Martha waved dismissively. "I just wanted to know what we're dealing with. Don't you think it's important to understand her genetic background? What if there are hereditary conditions we should be watching for? That information would be in her medical records, which we have," I countered. This was a violation of her privacy and our trust. You're being dramatic as usual, Samantha. I was just being thorough. That's what a real grandmother does, looks out for potential problems. For Lily's sake, I swallowed my anger and gave Martha another chance. It would prove to be one of many mistakes I made in trying to force a relationship that Martha had no intention of nurturing. Christmas had always been Martha's showcase event, the time when her immaculately decorated three-story colonial home became the stage for her performance as the perfect family matriarch. Last year marked the first Christmas with Lily officially as our daughter, and despite my reservations, I wanted her to experience the full Collins family tradition. Grand Martha promised me something special this year, Lily told me excitedly as we drove to my mother's house on Christmas Eve. She'd started calling her Grand Martha at my suggestion. Though Martha had never acknowledged the title, she said she's been saving it for me. My heart warmed at Lily's enthusiasm. Maybe things were changing. Maybe Martha was finally accepting her. Martha's home was a display of Christmas perfection, a 12-foot Douglas fir adorned with antique ornaments in the foyer, garlands winding up the mahogany staircase, and the scent of cinnamon and cloves hanging in the air. The dining room table was set with her best china, crystal glasses, and silver that had belonged to her grandmother. "You're 15 minutes late," Martha greeted us at the door, perfectly coiffed in a deep green cashmere sweater and pearls. She kissed the air beside my cheek before turning to James. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." Traffic was heavy, James offered with the strained politeness he always used around my mother. Lily stepped forward with a small potted poinsettia we'd helped her select. "Merry Christmas, Grand Martha. I brought this for you." Martha glanced at the plant. "How thoughtful. Put it in the kitchen, would you? Away from the good furniture." My brother Robert, his wife Diane, and their two children Madison, 14, and Tyler, 10, were already seated in the living room. Robert had always been Martha's favorite, following her life plan by becoming a corporate attorney and marrying Diane, the daughter of one of Martha's country club friends. "Sammy," Robert called warmly, giving me a hug. He'd always been kind, despite occupying the golden child position in our family dynamic. "And this must be Lily. We've heard so much about you." This was the first time Robert's family was meeting Lily, despite my numerous invitations for them to visit over the past year. Martha had always managed to schedule competing family events that Robert couldn't miss. "Madison, Tyler, why don't you show Lily the game room?" Diane suggested, giving me a sympathetic smile that hinted she understood more than she let on. "Actually," Martha interrupted, "Madison and Tyler are helping me with a special project before dinner. Perhaps Lily can entertain herself in the den." The division had begun even before coats were off. Throughout the evening, Martha lavished attention on Madison and Tyler, praising Madison's violin recital and Tyler's soccer trophies. When Lily mentioned she'd made the honor roll, Martha merely nodded and turned the conversation back to her biological grandchildren. Dinner was a masterpiece of Martha's culinary skills: prime rib, Yorkshire pudding, roasted vegetables arranged by color, and her famous cranberry sauce. She served the children at the table, giving Madison and Tyler generous portions while placing a noticeably smaller serving on Lily's plate. "Lily has a small appetite," Martha explained when James raised an eyebrow. "I wouldn't want food to go to waste." The tension built through dinner with Martha's barbed comments thinly veiled as concern. "Samantha, is Lily getting enough sun? She's so pale compared to Madison." Or, "Does Lily always eat so quickly? I suppose table manners weren't a priority in her previous situation." James squeezed my hand under the table, our signal that I was approaching my limit. I took a deep breath and changed the subject to Robert's recent promotion. After dinner came the moment Lily had been anticipating: gift exchange in the living room. Martha had stacked presents under the tree with precision, largest to smallest, each wrapped in coordinating paper with elaborate bows. Madison received a genuine pearl necklace to start her collection. Tyler got an expensive drone with a camera. Martha beamed as they opened their gifts, reminiscing about when she'd received her first pearls and how Robert had always loved gadgets. Finally, Martha handed Lily a small, clumsily wrapped package with visibly yellowed tape and paper that didn't match the others. "This is something special," Martha said, though her tone lacked warmth, "from the family collection." Lily opened it carefully to reveal a tarnished, silver-plated bookmark with the engraving nearly worn away. It was clearly an old, forgotten item Martha had found in a drawer and hastily wrapped. "Thank you, Grand Martha," Lily said, her voice small but determined to be grateful. It's very nice. It belonged to someone in the family, Martha replied vaguely. I thought you might appreciate having something with history, since you're new to us. The evening might have ended with just this subtle cruelty if not for what happened next. As we moved to the kitchen for dessert, Lily accidentally bumped a small crystal bell ornament that Martha had placed precariously on a side table. It fell and shattered on the hardwood floor. The room went silent. Lily immediately dropped to her knees to clean up the pieces. I'm so sorry, Grandmartha. I didn't see it there. I can replace it. Martha's face transformed from polite hostess to cold fury in an instant. That was a Collins family heirloom from 1897. It survived 2 world wars and 3 generations only to be destroyed by a careless child who has no concept of its value or history. It was an accident, Mother, I said, kneeling to help Lily. We can look for a replacement. There is no replacement. Martha's voice rose sharply. Just as there is no replacement for real family, I've tried to accommodate this. Arrangement of yours, Samantha, but I've had enough of this charade. She turned to Lily, who was still on her knees surrounded by crystal shards, and delivered the words that would change everything. You're not my granddaughter. You never will be. Get out of my house. Lily's face crumpled as tears immediately spilled down her cheeks. James moved quickly to her side, helping her up and pulling her protectively against him. What the hell is wrong with you? He demanded of Martha, his voice shaking with anger. Robert and Diane sat frozen, their children wide-eyed and uncomfortable. No one had ever spoken to Martha that way in her own home. Nothing is wrong with me, Martha replied with frightening calm. I'm simply stating what everyone knows but is too polite to say. This girl is not a Collins. She never will be. I've played along with Samantha's little adoption fantasy long enough. I found my voice then, rising from some deep place of protective fury I hadn't known existed until that moment. We're leaving. Now. And until you can offer a genuine apology to my daughter, yes, Mother, my daughter, we won't be back. Martha smiled, that cold smile that still haunts me, the one that showed this wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, but a calculated attack she'd been planning. You'll be back, she said with certainty. Family always comes back. James already had our coats. I wrapped my arm around Lily's trembling shoulders, and we walked out of Martha's perfect Christmas into the snowy night, leaving behind more than just an uncomfortable family dinner. The car ride home was punctuated only by the sound of Lily's muffled sobs from the back seat. James white-knuckled the steering wheel, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. I sat paralyzed, suspended between rage and heartbreak, reaching back occasionally to squeeze Lily's knee in silent reassurance. When we arrived home, Lily ran straight to her bedroom and locked the door, something she'd never done before. James and I stood in the hallway, listening to her cry, feeling helpless. I'll kill your mother, James whispered, his voice tight with fury. Get in line, I replied, leaning my forehead against the cool wood of Lily's door. Lily, sweetheart, can we come in? No response came except for the sound of something soft hitting the door, likely a pillow. We love you, Lily, I tried again. What Grandma Martha said was wrong. So wrong. You are our daughter in every way that matters. She's never coming near our family again, James declared. I don't care if she's your mother, she's done. I nodded, but the complicated emotions of breaking ties with my mother, despite her cruelty, still tangled inside me. Later that night, after Lily had cried herself to sleep, I found James sitting in the dark kitchen. I should have protected her better, I said, collapsing into the chair beside him. I knew how Mom could be, I just thought. I don't know what I thought. You wanted to believe your mother could love your daughter, James said gently. That's not a crime, Sam. It is when it hurts Lily, I whispered, and the truth of those words solidified something inside me. Whatever complicated relationship I had with my mother, Lily's well-being now came first. The following days revealed the depth of the wound Martha had inflicted. Lily began exhibiting behaviors we hadn't seen since her first weeks with us, hoarding food in her bedroom, flinching when we moved too quickly, asking repeatedly if we were sure we wanted her. One night, I found her sleeping on the floor beside her bed rather than in it. When I asked why, her answer broke my heart. I don't deserve the nice bed, she said simply, as if this made perfect sense. The nightmares started next. 3 or 4 times a week, we'd wake to Lily's screams. finding her tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, convinced we were sending her away. "You promised you wouldn't give me back," she'd sob as I held her. "You promised." "Never," I'd whisper fiercely into her hair. "Never, never, never." When school resumed after winter break, Lily's teacher emailed with concerns. Our bright, engaged student was now withdrawn, turning in incomplete assignments and isolating herself at recess. The school counselor called, suggesting Lily might benefit from talking to someone. That's how we found Dr. Rivera, a child psychologist specializing in adoption trauma. In our first parent consultation, she didn't mince words. What Lily experienced was a profound rejection that tapped directly into her core abandonment wounds, she explained. Children who've been in foster care often carry the belief that they're fundamentally unlovable, that there's something wrong with them that makes people leave. Your mother's words confirmed Lily's worst fears. "How do we fix this?" James asked, his voice breaking. Dr. Rivera's expression was gentle but serious. "This isn't something that gets fixed quickly. Lily needs consistent reassurance that your love is unconditional and permanent. She needs to know that your mother's rejection reflects your mother's failings, not hers." We threw ourselves into Lily's healing family therapy sessions, individual support for Lily, books about adoption and belonging, and constant reassurance of our love. Slowly, she began to stabilize, though the shadow of Christmas lingered. Then came the second betrayal. Robert called one evening in late January, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Sam, I need to warn you about something. Mom's been talking to everyone in the family about Lily. She's saying difficult things." "What kinds of things?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would be awful. "She's telling people that Lily is troubled, dangerous even, that she has violent tendencies, and that you're in denial about it. She mentioned something about Lily having killed animals in previous foster homes and stealing from you." My blood ran cold. "None of that is true. Lily is the gentlest soul I've ever known." "I figured," Robert sighed. "But Mom is persuasive. Aunt Carol called me asking if you were safe. I told her it was nonsense, but people believe her," I finished his thought. "Some do," he admitted. "Diane and I don't, for what it's worth." What Robert couldn't have known was that Lily was standing in the hallway, having come down for a glass of water. I saw her frozen there, eyes wide with horror, as she heard herself being described as dangerous by the grandmother who had rejected her. "I have to go," I told Robert abruptly, ending the call as Lily began to hyperventilate, sliding down the wall to the floor. I rushed to her, pulling her into my arms as she gasped for air, her panic attack in full swing. "It's not true," I repeated as I rocked her. "None of it is true. We know who you are." That night, as James and I sat shell-shocked on our porch after finally getting Lily calmed and back to sleep, I made a decision that would change everything. "This isn't just about Mom being cruel anymore," I told James, my voice steadier than I felt. "She's actively trying to destroy Lily's reputation and possibly our family. This is war, and I'm done playing defense." James took my hand, his expression resolute. "Whatever you need to do, I'm with you, all the way." I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "Then we fight back. Not just for Lily's sake, but for every child my mother might hurt in the future with her poison." Little did I know then just how far Martha would go, or how much strength I would find within myself to stop her. February arrived with a thin layer of snow and Martha's first attempt to regain control. The doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon while James was at the hardware store, and Lily and I were baking cookies. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing on our porch holding a large gift bag. "Samantha, I know you're in there. Your car's in the driveway," she called out. "I've come to make amends." Against my better judgment, I opened the door but blocked the entrance with my body. "What do you want, Mother?" Martha looked immaculate as always in her camel hair coat and leather gloves, not a hair out of place. She held out the gift bag. "Is that any way to greet your mother?" "I've brought something for Lily." "She doesn't want anything from you," I replied, not reaching for the bag. Martha's smile tightened. "Don't be ridiculous. Of course she does. It's an iPad, the newest model. Every child wants technology. What Lily wants is to feel safe and loved," I said. "Something your money can't buy." Martha's facade slipped for a moment, her eyes hardening. "You're being extremely ungrateful, Samantha. After everything I've done for you, This is how you treat me? Cutting me off from my family? You cut yourself off when you told my daughter she wasn't your granddaughter, and to get out of your house, I reminded her. Those were your choices, your words. Martha waved dismissively. I was upset about the broken heirloom. You know how I treasure family history. I may have overreacted slightly, but the girl needs to learn respect for other people's property. Her name is Lily, I said through gritted teeth, and she's not the girl, she's my daughter. Oh, Samantha, Martha sighed as if I were being particularly dense. You can call her whatever you want, but blood is blood. Real family has obligations to one another. You have an obligation to me as your mother. My only obligation is to protect my child from people who hurt her, I replied. Goodbye, Mother. As I closed the door, Martha called out. This isn't over, Samantha. Not by a long shot. I didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. 3 days later, a social worker from Child Protective Services showed up at our door. She introduced herself as Miss Quoden Fortius Kane Reynolds and explained that they'd received a report about potentially unsafe conditions in our home. Someone has reported concerns about your adopted daughter Lily, she explained gently. We're required to investigate all reports. My heart pounded as I invited her in, mind racing to figure out what Martha had done. Miss. Reynolds asked to speak with Lily alone, then inspected our home, checking the kitchen for food, looking in the bathrooms, and examining Lily's bedroom. The questions were invasive and frightening. Did Lily hurt herself? Had she ever harmed animals? Were we aware of any violent tendencies? Did she steal? Set fires? Was she sexually inappropriate? None of that is true, I insisted, showing Miss Reynolds Lily's artwork, her straight-A report cards from before Christmas, the letters from her previous social worker praising her adjustment. I have to ask, Miss Reynolds said, not unkindly. The report was quite detailed. After 2 hours, she seemed satisfied that the allegations were unfounded, but the damage was done. Lily was terrified, and James and I were shaken to our core. It was Grandma Martha, wasn't it? Lily asked that night, her voice small in the darkness of her bedroom, where I sat on the edge of her bed. She called those people to take me away. I couldn't lie to her. We think so, sweetheart, but it didn't work. You're staying right here with us, forever. Why does she hate me so much? Lily whispered. What did I do wrong? Nothing, I said firmly. You did absolutely nothing wrong. Sometimes people have darkness inside them that has nothing to do with the people they hurt. The CPS investigation was closed as unfounded, but Martha was just getting started. The third betrayal came a week later when Miss Lizen founded. Reynolds called to inform me that they'd received supporting evidence from a family member, my brother Robert. I was stunned. Robert had seemed supportive on the phone. Had he been playing both sides all along? I called him immediately, shaking with rage. How could you? She's a child, Robert. What are you talking about? He sounded genuinely confused. CPS says you provided evidence against Lily, after you called to warn me about Mom's lies. There was a pause. Then, Sam, I swear I didn't. Mom asked me to send some old family photos for a project. I had no idea she would. What photos? I interrupted. Just some from last summer at the lake house. There was one where Lily was having a meltdown after falling off the dock. She looked upset and I guess out of context. I remembered that day. Lily had scraped her leg badly on a nail in the dock and was crying from pain and fear of getting a tetanus shot. In a photo, without context, it could look like a rage episode. She manipulated you, I said, the realization dawning. She's using you to hurt Lily. Later that evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Diane, Robert's wife, calling from a grocery store where Martha couldn't overhear. Sam, I need to tell you something, she whispered. Martha's been planning this for months. She has a whole strategy to discredit Lily and force you to come to your senses about the adoption. What? How do you know this? She tried to recruit me to help, Diane admitted. Said it would be good for Robert's inheritance if I sided with her. She has a list, Sam people to contact, authorities to call, even Lily's school. Ice formed in my stomach. Lily's school? She's planning to talk to the administration about Lily being unstable. She wants to create problems there too. After hanging up, I immediately checked our family's social media accounts. Martha had been blocked from my profiles after Christmas, but she'd created a fake account to monitor everything we posted. She'd taken screenshots of normal tween moments, Lily looking sullen in one photo, angry in another, and stripped them of context to build her false narrative. The next day, Lily's principal called. Martha had contacted him with concerns about Lily's home environment and suggested the school watch for signs of abuse. The principal, thankfully, had worked with us through Lily's initial adjustment and knew us well enough to be skeptical, but the humiliation of having to defend our family yet again was taking its toll. The stress began affecting every aspect of our lives. I took a leave of absence from teaching when panic attacks made it impossible to focus on my students. James started turning down landscaping projects to stay closer to home. We were constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for Martha's next attack. She won't stop, I told James one night after discovering Martha had contacted our homeowners association with fabricated complaints about our property. She's trying to destroy us from every angle. James looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes from weeks of disrupted sleep. Maybe we should consider moving. Starting fresh somewhere she can't find us. The fact that we were even considering such a drastic step showed how desperate we'd become. But Martha Collins had resources, connections, and a lifetime of experience manipulating people and systems. Running might not be enough. What we needed was a way to fight back, but I didn't yet know how to battle someone who was willing to burn everything down just to prove she was right. March arrived with Lily's 13th birthday, a milestone we'd been planning to celebrate for months. Despite everything happening with Martha, we were determined to make it special. Lily had invited her entire class to a pottery painting party at a local studio, and I'd spent weeks preparing personalized goodie bags and ordering her favorite cake. The day of the party, James and I arrived early to decorate the studio with balloons and streamers. The staff had set up 13 pottery pieces for painting, plus extras for parents who might stay. The cake chocolate with raspberry filling waited in a box on the counter. We'd splurged on everything, wanting to give Lily a day of pure happiness after months of stress. At the appointed time, we waited with Lily by the door, greeting each arrival with excitement. Except no one arrived. As 15 minutes stretched to 30, then an hour, the awful truth became unavoidable. None of Lily's classmates were coming, not one. Maybe they got the wrong address? James suggested desperately. I checked my phone. I sent digital invitations with the exact location, and 3 parents RSVP'd yes. Lily sat at one of the painting tables, mechanically brushing blue glaze onto a ceramic dolphin, her face carefully blank in a way I recognized from her early days with us, the mask she wore to hide unbearable pain. "It's okay," she said, not looking up from her dolphin. "We can still have fun, just us." James and I exchanged helpless glances over her head. The studio staff hovered awkwardly, their pity obvious. One whispered to me that we would only be charged for the pieces actually used, as if that were the problem. We went through the motions of the party, painting pottery, eating cake that would feed 30, opening the few presents from us and the grandparents on James's side. Lily maintained her stoic expression throughout, only the occasional trembling of her lower lip betraying her feelings. It wasn't until we got home that I discovered what had happened. An email had been sent to all the parents the night before, appearing to come from me, canceling the party due to Lily being under psychiatric evaluation after a violent incident. The email included fabricated details about Lily hurting another student, a lie so specific and horrifying that of course parents kept their children away. Somehow, Martha had gotten access to my contact list. That night, after what had to be the most heartbreaking rendition of Happy Birthday ever sung, I went to check on Lily before bed. Her door was open, and what I saw stopped my heart. She was methodically packing her clothes into her old duffel bag, the same one she'd arrived with 3 years earlier. "Lily, what are you doing, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't look up, just continued folding a sweater with careful precision. "I think it would be better if I left." "Left? What do you mean?" She finally met my eyes, her expression frighteningly adult and resigned. "Nobody came to my party because of me. You had to take time off work because of me. You and Dad are fighting more because of me." Her voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe Grandma Martha is right about me. I crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled the sweater from her hands, then gathered her into my arms. She remained stiff, neither returning the embrace nor pulling away. "Listen to me, Lily Collins," I said fiercely. "Your grandmother is not right about you or anything else. She is a manipulative, cruel person who can't stand to see others happy." "But everyone believes her," Lily said dully. "No one came today. Everyone thinks I'm bad." "They believe lies," she told them, I corrected. "And we're going to fix that. But you are never, ever leaving this family. Do you understand me? Never." I held her until she finally relaxed into my arms, her tears soaking my shirt. We stayed that way for a long time, rocking gently on the edge of her bed surrounded by half-packed clothes. Later, I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot and finally allowed myself to break down. Sobs tore through me with such violence that I could barely breathe. I had never felt so helpless, so utterly defeated. Martha was winning. She was systematically destroying my daughter's sense of self, my marriage, our family, and I couldn't stop her. "Sam?" A tap on my window startled me. Through my tears, I saw a familiar face, Allison Parker, my best friend from high school whom I'd lost touch with after college. I quickly wiped my face and rolled down the window. "Allison? Hi, I'm sorry, I'm just having a moment." "Are you okay? You look terrible," she said with the direct concern I remembered from our teenage years. "Not really," I admitted. "It's complicated." "I have time," she said, and something in her expression, genuine care without pity, broke through my isolation. 20 minutes later, we sat in a nearby coffee shop, and I found myself pouring out the whole ugly story. Allison listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "Your mother did the same thing to your dad's second wife," she said when I finished. I stared at her, uncomprehending. "What are you talking about? Dad never remarried after the divorce." "That's what she wanted you to think," Allison said quietly. "Your dad started dating Elena Rodriguez about a year after your parents split. They got married in a small ceremony, I know, because my mom was invited. But your mother went on a campaign to drive her away. Rumors. Anonymous reports to Elena's workplace about theft, even suggestions that she was only interested in your dad for his money. Elena was gone within 6 months. My mind reeled. Dad told us he wasn't interested in dating after Mom. Because your mother threatened to fight for full custody if he brought that woman around you kids, Allison explained. Your dad chose seeing you over his new marriage. This revelation shifted something fundamental in my understanding. Martha's cruelty toward Lily wasn't unique. It was part of a pattern of isolating and controlling family members that had been going on for decades. "She's done this before," I whispered. "To my father, to Elena. And to your high school boyfriend Mike," Allison added. "Remember how he suddenly broke up with you senior year? Your mom told his parents you were caught shoplifting and were in therapy for kleptomania." Memories rushed back, relationships that mysteriously soured, friends who suddenly stopped calling, my father's increasing isolation after the divorce. Martha had been pruning my connections my entire life, ensuring that her influence remained primary. Allison became my first real ally in the fight. She offered not just emotional support but practical help, introducing me to her friend who worked in family law, connecting me with a support group for parents dealing with narcissistic family members, even watching Lily occasionally to give James and me a break. James, meanwhile, had been researching narcissistic family dynamics and emotional abuse. He brought home books with titles like Toxic Parents and Children of the Self-Absorbed, highlighting passages that described Martha's behavior with uncanny accuracy. "It's not about Lily at all," he explained one night as we sat surrounded by these resources. "Lily is just the current target. Your mother can't stand anything that threatens her control or contradicts her narrative of family. Adoption does both. It creates family bonds she didn't authorize and can't control." Our family therapy sessions took on new significance as we began to understand the broader context of Martha's behavior. Dr. Simmons, our family therapist, helped us establish clearer boundaries and develop strategies for protecting Lily's self-esteem. Most importantly, Lily slowly began to open up about her feelings. "I wanted Grandma Martha to love me so much," she admitted during one session, twisting a tissue in her hands. "I thought if I was perfect enough, quiet enough, smart enough, she would accept me." "Sweetheart," I said, "my heart breaking. You are perfect exactly as you are. The problem was never you. I know that here," she tapped her head, but not here yet. She placed her hand over her heart. That honest acknowledgement marked the beginning of true healing. Instead of trying to shield Lily from the painful truth about her grandmother, we began age-appropriate discussions about toxic people and the importance of chosen family. One evening, as the three of us sat at our kitchen table making a family mission statement, an exercise suggested by Dr. Simmons, Lily suddenly looked up with clear eyes. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," she said simply. "I want to fight back." James and I exchanged glances, surprised by her directness. "What do you mean, honey?" I asked. "Grandma Martha is hurting us because she thinks she can," Lily explained with the clarity that sometimes comes from children who see through adult pretenses. "She thinks nobody will stop her." "But we can stop her, right? We can stand up to her?" In that moment, looking at my daughter's resolute face, I felt something shift inside me, a steely determination replacing the helpless rage that had been consuming me for months. "Yes," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "We absolutely can." James put his hand over both of ours, together. As a family, we made a pact that night, a solemn promise to stand united against Martha's attacks, to believe in each other when doubts crept in, and to fight not just for our protection but for justice. The next day, I called Allison's lawyer friend and scheduled a consultation. It was time to stop playing defense and start taking back control of our story and our lives. April brought spring showers and a newfound sense of purpose. The consultation with Kate Donovan, Allison's lawyer friend, had been illuminating and sobering. What your mother is doing is called grandparent alienation, and in some cases, it can be legally actionable, Kate explained as we sat in her office. The false CPS reports are particularly serious. That's making a fraudulent claim to a government agency. "Can we prove it was her?" James asked. Kate smiled grimly. "That's what we need to work on. Documenting everything is crucial now. Every call, email, social media post, every interaction with Lily's school or community that might involve your mother, all of it needs to be recorded, dated, and preserved." I nodded, already mentally cataloging the incidents from the past few months. "What about a restraining order?" "Possible, but challenging without direct threats of physical harm," Kate advised. However, building a paper trail now could support that move if needed later. Armed with legal advice, I created a methodical documentation system. James set up a dedicated email address where we forwarded everything related to Martha's interference. We started a journal documenting all incidents, however small, with dates, times, and witnesses. I installed security cameras around our house and kept records of all strange calls and unexpected visitors. But gathering evidence was only part of our strategy. We also needed allies, people who knew Martha's true nature and could corroborate our experiences. My first thought was to reconnect with family members who had drifted away over the years, people who might have experienced Martha's manipulation firsthand. Through old photo albums and social media searches, I compiled a list of relatives Martha rarely mentioned. The first name on my list, Aunt Grace, my father's sister, who had vanished from family gatherings when I was a teenager after a mysterious falling out with Martha. Finding her wasn't easy. She had remarried and moved to Arizona, but through a series of social media connections, I finally obtained her phone number. My hands trembled as I dialed, uncertain how she would respond after so many years of silence. "Hello?" Her voice was warm and carried the same slight southern lilt I remembered from childhood. "Aunt Grace? This is Samantha Collins, Richard's daughter." A long pause followed then. "Samantha? My goodness, it's been what, 20 years?" "Something like that," I replied. "I hope it's okay that I called. I need to talk to you about my mother." Another pause, then a heavy sigh. "I've been waiting for this call for a long time, honey. I always figured one day you'd see Martha for what she really is." Over the next hour, Aunt Grace filled in the blanks of a family history Martha had carefully sanitized. Grace had confronted Martha about her controlling behavior toward my father after discovering Martha had intercepted and hidden letters from my father's family during their marriage. When Grace threatened to tell my father, Martha retaliated by spreading rumors that Grace had substance abuse problems and couldn't be trusted around children. "She made sure I couldn't see you kids," Grace explained, her voice cracking with old pain. "Told your father I was dangerous, convinced his family to exclude me from gatherings. By the time I could prove the rumors were false, you children barely remembered me. and your father was too beaten down to fight anymore. She's doing it again, I said softly. To my daughter this time. Then you stop her, Grace said with sudden fierceness. I have 20 years of documentation journals, letters, witnesses, everything I gathered trying to clear my name. It's yours if it helps. Grace became our second ally, not only providing her own evidence of Martha's manipulative patterns but connecting me with other family members who had been pushed out of Martha's carefully curated family narrative. There was cousin Beth, who had been ostracized after refusing to loan Martha money for a business investment. Uncle Thomas, whose career in local politics had been sabotaged by rumors Martha spread when he didn't support her preferred candidate. Even my father's elderly Aunt Mildred had a Martha story. She had been excluded from my parents' wedding after questioning the prenuptial agreement Martha demanded. The picture that emerged was consistent and disturbing. For decades, Martha had been controlling the family through manipulation, isolation, and fear. Those who resisted were systematically cut off and discredited. But Martha's financial manipulations proved even more shocking. Through conversations with these long-lost relatives, I discovered that Martha had borrowed significant sums from various family members, created investment schemes that primarily benefited herself, and even convinced my father's parents to change their will in her favor before they died. Your grandfather intended to leave his vacation property to all his grandchildren equally, Aunt Grace explained. Somehow, Martha convinced him that she would manage it for you kids, but after he died, she sold it and kept the money. Called it compensation for caring for him in his final years, though we all know your father did most of the actual caregiving. This information gave me a new perspective on Martha's persistent interest in our family's financial decisions, her offering to manage Lily's college fund, and her frequent reminders about her will and who would inherit what. Armed with historical context and growing documentation of current events, I felt increasingly confident in our ability to counter Martha's narrative. But our family still remained vulnerable to her direct attacks. The third betrayal came in late April when we discovered Martha had attempted to access Lily's medical and school records by claiming to be her legal guardian. Mrs. Collins came by the office yesterday asking for copies of Lily's records. Dr. Patel, Lily's pediatrician, informed me during a routine appointment. She said she needed them for a specialist consultation. When we asked for the signed release form, she seemed quite put out that we wouldn't just hand them over. A call to Lily's school confirmed a similar attempt there. Martha had arrived, claiming to be picking up Lily for a family emergency and demanded access to her educational records. Thankfully, the school had strict security protocols and verified that Martha wasn't on the approved contact list. These incidents prompted immediate meetings with both the medical office and school administration to reinforce our family boundaries and security measures. The school principal, Dr. Hayes, was particularly supportive. Unfortunately, we've seen similar situations with other families, she explained during our meeting. We've flagged Lily's records with an additional security note, and all front office staff have been alerted not to release any information to Mrs. Collins. As we built our documentation and support network, an unexpected ally emerged. Diane, Robert's wife, who requested a secret meeting at a coffee shop 2 towns over. Robert doesn't know I'm here, she confessed, nervously stirring her latte. He's still caught in the middle, trying to please everyone, but I can't stand by anymore. Diane revealed that she had been keeping a journal of Martha's behavior for years, initially as a way to process her own experiences with her difficult mother-in-law. These records proved invaluable, documenting patterns of manipulation that predated our current conflict. She's trying to drive a wedge between Robert and me too, Diane admitted, constantly telling him I'm too controlling, that I keep him from his real family. Sound familiar? All too familiar, I agreed. Has she ever targeted your children? Diane's expression darkened. She plays favorites. Madison gets the praise and attention because she looks like Robert and excels academically. Tyler gets criticized constantly for being too sensitive. He has mild ADHD. She's suggested more than once that we should be stricter with him, that his problems reflect poor parenting. This information added another dimension to our understanding of Martha's behavior. She wasn't just rejecting Lily for being adopted. She was categorizing all her grandchildren as either worthy or unworthy based on how well they fit her narrow definition of family success. The most frightening incident occurred in early May when Martha showed up at Lily's school claiming a family emergency. The school, thankfully, followed protocol and refused to release Lily without verification. Mrs. Collins became quite agitated, the school secretary reported when I arrived after their urgent call. She insisted she had every right to pick up her granddaughter and threatened to call her lawyer. The security camera footage showed Martha arguing with staff before eventually leaving. When the principal suggested involving the police, Martha had switched tactics, tearfully claiming a misunderstanding and retreating to her car. This incident proved to be a turning point. Martha's behavior had escalated from behind-the-scenes manipulation to an overt attempt to physically remove Lily from school. The school filed an incident report, providing us with official documentation of Martha's concerning behavior. By late May, we had accumulated extensive evidence, a journal with over 50 documented incidents, emails and messages from Martha showing controlling and manipulative language, statements from family members describing historical patterns, school and medical records of Martha's unauthorized access attempts, security footage of the school incident, records of the false CPS report and subsequent investigation, documentation of the birthday party sabotage. James and I sat at our kitchen table late one night, spreading these materials before us like battle plans. "Do you think it's enough?" I asked, rubbing my tired eyes. James nodded slowly. "I think we're ready for the next step." What we didn't know then was that our careful preparations were about to be tested. Martha, sensing her usual tactics weren't working, was preparing for a more direct confrontation, one that would finally expose her true nature to everyone who mattered. By early June, we had consulted with both legal and psychological experts to craft our response to Martha's campaign. Kate Donovan had connected us with Dr. Terzivslidas in N. Mason, Malcolm Freeman, a psychologist specializing in family systems and narcissistic abuse. "Your strategy needs to address multiple dimensions," Dr. Freeman advised during our consultation. "Legal protection, psychological support for your family, especially Lily, and a clear narrative that counters the false one your mother is spreading." Together with Kate, we developed a comprehensive approach. First, the legal front. With our documentation in hand, we filed for a restraining order against Martha. The hearing was set for mid-June, giving us time to organize our evidence and prepare our testimony. On the morning of the hearing, Martha arrived at the courthouse in a conservative navy suit, pearl earrings gleaming, the perfect picture of a respectable grandmother. Her attorney, a stern man in his 60s with an impressive reputation, stood confidently beside her. When Martha spotted me in the hallway, she approached with open arms, as if we were meeting for lunch rather than a legal proceeding. "Samantha, darling, this has all gone far enough," she said loudly enough for nearby court personnel to hear. "We're family. We should be able to work things out without all this unpleasantness." I stepped back, maintaining distance. "Please don't approach me, Mother. We'll let the judge decide what's appropriate." Her expression flickered, the mask of concerned grandmother slipping for just an instant before she recovered. "You always were prone to dramatics," she said with a tight smile, "just like your father." Inside the courtroom, Martha played her role perfectly, the wounded grandmother, bewildered by her daughter's sudden hostility, concerned only for her granddaughter's welfare. "I simply don't understand why Samantha won't let me see my granddaughter," she told the judge, dabbing at dry eyes with a linen handkerchief. "I've only ever wanted what's best for that child." But Kate was prepared. Methodically, she presented our evidence, the documented pattern of interference, the false reports, the school incident, the testimony from family members about similar behavior over decades. The turning point came when Kate questioned Martha directly about the birthday party sabotage. Martha initially denied any involvement, but when confronted with technical evidence linking the fake cancellation email to her IP address, her demeanor changed. "If I did send such an email, which I'm not saying I did," Martha replied, her voice taking on a harder edge, "it would only have been to protect those children from potential harm. A grandmother has responsibilities that a young woman like you wouldn't understand." "Responsibilities that include sabotaging a 13-year-old's birthday party?" Kate pressed. Martha's mask slipped further. "That child needs professional help, not parties. If Samantha would face reality instead of playing house with her rescue project, she'd see that." The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, leaned forward. "Mrs. Collins, are you referring to your adopted granddaughter as a rescue project?" Martha's attorney tried to intervene, but Martha waved him off, her composure cracking. "Adoption is a lovely charity, Your Honor. But let's not pretend it's the same as real family. Blood matters. History matters. That child has neither Colin's blood nor Colin's history." A murmur went through the courtroom. The judge's expression hardened as Martha continued, her carefully cultivated public persona giving way to her true beliefs. "My daughter has always been impulsive, easily influenced. Her husband wanted a child, any child, and she went along with it rather than addressing their fertility issues properly. Now they're stuck with a troubled girl with who knows what genetic predispositions, and they expect everyone else to pretend this is normal." By the time Martha finished, she had done more damage to her own case than we ever could have. The judge granted our restraining order, prohibiting Martha from contacting us directly, approaching our home, or visiting Lily's school. "Mrs. Collins," the judge concluded, "based on the evidence presented and your own statements today, I find your behavior toward your granddaughter deeply concerning. This court strongly suggests you seek professional counseling before attempting to restore any relationship with your family." The legal victory was important, but just the beginning of our counteroffensive. With the restraining order in place, we turned our attention to reclaiming our family's narrative. The fourth betrayal came just days after the hearing, when James received an email from Martha containing manipulated excerpts from my childhood journals, which she had kept all these years. The passages, taken out of context, portrayed me as unstable and prone to exaggeration, all part of Martha's attempt to drive a wedge between James and me. "She thinks if she can break us up, she wins," James said, forwarding the email to our documentation account before deleting it. "She doesn't understand that we're stronger together." His unwavering support gave me the courage for our next step, strategically reclaiming our social narrative. For too long, Martha had controlled the family story, deciding who was included, who was excluded, and how events were interpreted. Now, we would tell our own story. We began with selective social media posts, nothing about Martha directly, but positive stories about our family, Lily's accomplishments, and the supportive community we were building. We shared resources about adoption, family diversity, and narcissistic family systems, subtly educating our network without directly mentioning our situation. Next came the difficult task of establishing clear boundaries with extended family members who had enabled Martha's behavior. I drafted careful emails to cousins, aunts, and uncles, explaining that while we valued our relationship with them, we needed to maintain distance from Martha for our daughter's well-being. Some responded with understanding and support. Others, deeply enmeshed in Martha's narrative, reacted with anger or dismissal. We had expected this division and accepted it as necessary for our family's healing. The most calculated decision was exposing Martha's behavior to her social circle, not through direct accusations, but by simply telling the truth when asked. When Martha's church friend Mrs. Holloway called, concerned about rumors she'd heard, I calmly explained the situation without embellishment. "I wish it weren't true, Mrs. Holloway," I concluded, "but we have to protect our daughter." Word spread quickly through Martha's carefully cultivated social network. The community that had been her power base for decades began to see beyond her polished facade. Several of her friends reached out to offer support or share their own experiences with Martha's less charitable behavior. Martha, of course, mounted a counteroffensive claiming we were keeping Lily from her, that we were the ones spreading lies, that we were unstable and vindictive. But without direct access to us or Lily, her claims increasingly fell flat against the evidence of our calm, consistent behavior. As our strategy unfolded, I found unexpected healing through a support group for parents dealing with narcissistic family members. Hearing other stories helped me understand that what we were experiencing wasn't unique or personal, it was a recognizable pattern of behavior that others had survived and overcome. During one particularly powerful session, I finally voiced a truth I'd been afraid to acknowledge. "I think I've been grieving the mother I never actually had," I admitted to the group. "I've spent my whole life trying to earn the love of someone who's incapable of giving it unconditionally." This realization freed something in me, the endless cycle of trying to please Martha, of hoping this time would be different, of blaming myself when it wasn't. I could finally see that her rejection of Lily was just an extension of how she had always approached relationships, as transactions where love was conditional on compliance. The final confrontation with my brother Robert came in late June, after weeks of him trying to remain neutral between Martha and me. We met at a park halfway between our homes, sitting on a bench watching children play on the swings. Mom says you're keeping Lily from her out of spite, he began awkwardly. That you're turning everyone against her because she dared to question your parenting. I looked at my brother, the golden child who had never experienced Martha's rejection, who had always been protected from her worst behavior while simultaneously being used to enable it. Do you really believe that, Robert? After everything you've seen? He stared at his hands. I don't know what to believe anymore. Mom's always been good to me, to my kids, at least to Madison. But not to Tyler, I pressed gently. Not to Lily. Not to Diane when she disagrees with Mom. Not to Dad's second wife. His head snapped up. What second wife? I told him about Elena Rodriguez, about our father's brief happiness that Martha had systematically destroyed. I showed him the documentation Grace had provided, the pattern that repeated across decades. Mom needs help, Robert, I said finally. Real psychological help. But until she gets it, we have to protect the vulnerable people in our family from her, and that includes your son. He didn't commit to anything that day, but something had shifted. A seed had been planted that would eventually bloom into another ally in our struggle for family healing. By late summer, our counteroffensive had achieved what we'd hoped for: safety for our family, a reclaimed narrative, and a growing support network of people who understood the truth. Martha remained a threat, but an increasingly isolated one, her power diminishing as more people saw through her manipulations. What we didn't anticipate was how desperate she would become when her usual tactics failed or how public her final meltdown would be. July brought stifling heat, and the news that Martha was organizing an Easter-themed family gathering at her home, ostensibly to heal divisions and bring the family together again. Though Easter had passed months ago, Martha apparently felt the symbolism of resurrection and renewal would serve her purposes. The invitation came through Robert, who called one evening sounding uncomfortable. Mom wants everyone to come to her house next Sunday, he explained. She says it's time to put all this unpleasantness behind us and be a family again. Robert, we have a restraining order, I reminded him. We legally can't be in the same place as her. She says she'll stay upstairs until we work things out. That her lawyer says that would comply with the order since she wouldn't be approaching you directly, he paused. She's invited everyone, Sam. Aunt Grace, Uncle Thomas, all the cousins. She says she wants reconciliation. Something about this didn't feel right. Martha had never been interested in reconciliation with family members she'd ostracized. Why start now? After consulting with Kate, we understood Martha's likely strategy. She was attempting to gather the extended family to rehabilitate her image and isolate us. If we didn't attend, she would paint us as unreasonable. If we did, she would control the environment and narrative. After careful consideration, we made a bold decision. We would attend, but on our terms. Kate confirmed that if Martha truly remained separate from us, we wouldn't be violating the restraining order. We would bring allies. Allison, Aunt Grace, and Diane had all agreed to accompany us. We would stay only for a short time. Most importantly, we would come prepared for whatever Martha might attempt. The day of the gathering, we arrived at Martha's house to find cars lining the driveway. She had indeed invited the entire extended family. Robert met us at the door, looking nervous. Mom's in the sunroom, he said. Everyone else is in the living room and garden. Inside, the house was decorated with Easter lilies and pastel ribbons, a surreal touch in the middle of summer. Family members milled about awkwardly, many of whom hadn't seen each other in years due to Martha's systematic family divisions. The tension was palpable. Aunt Grace squeezed my arm reassuringly. Remember, we've got your back. For the first hour, Martha remained unseen, though her presence was felt in every carefully arranged detail of the gathering. Family members approached us cautiously, some offering support, others clearly there to observe the drama. Lily stayed close between James and me, her expression guarded. Finally, Martha made her entrance. She descended the staircase like an actress taking the stage, dressed in a pale blue suit that emphasized her role as the wounded matriarch. The room fell silent as she surveyed her assembled family. My dear ones, she began, her voice warm and welcoming. Thank you all for coming. It means so much to have our family together again. Her gaze landed on us, standing with our allies near the garden doors. Something flickered behind her eyes, irritation, surprise, before she composed herself. Samantha, James, Lily, I'm so glad you could join us despite our misunderstandings. I stepped forward slightly, keeping Lily behind me. We came to hear what you have to say, Mother. Martha smiled benevolently at the assembled family. What I have to say is simple. Families disagree. Families hurt each other sometimes, but families forgive. I'm asking today for everyone to put aside their grievances and come together again in love. Murmurs of approval rippled through some of the gathered relatives. Martha's performance was masterful, the reasonable peacemaker extending an olive branch. I had prepared for this moment, knowing that how I responded would shape how our family understood this conflict for years to come. I appreciate the sentiment, Mother, I began carefully. Family is indeed precious. That's why we need to address what's happened honestly rather than papering over it. Martha's smile tightened. Of course, dear. Though perhaps some things are better discussed privately. Like the false report you made to Child Protective Services about Lily? I asked quietly. Or the email you sent canceling her birthday party? Or your attempt to pick her up from school without permission? The murmurs stopped. Martha's eyes darted around the room, assessing how many people had heard. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about, she said with a forced laugh. This is exactly the kind of misunderstanding I'd hoped we could move past today. It's not a misunderstanding, I countered, pulling a folder from my bag. We have documentation of everything: the CPS report traced to your phone number, the cancellation email traced to your IP address, the school security footage. This isn't about misunderstandings, it's about deliberate attempts to harm our daughter. Martha's charm offensive faltered as I laid out specific examples of her behavior over the past months. With each incident, her expression grew harder, the mask of benevolent matriarch slipping. She's just a child, I concluded. A child who deserved your love and protection, not your cruelty. Martha's facade finally cracked. That child, she hissed, is not a Collins, she never will be. I have spent my entire life building and protecting this family's legacy, and I will not see it diluted by some random girl with questionable genetics who you picked up when you couldn't produce a real grandchild. The room went absolutely silent. Several relatives gasped. Martha, seemingly unaware of how she sounded, continued her tirade. Do you think I didn't try? I gave that girl every chance to prove herself worthy of our name, but she's not one of us. Anyone with eyes can see it. She doesn't have our talents, our bearing, our bloodline. And instead of acknowledging reality, you expect me to pretend? To lie to everyone about who is and isn't family? As Martha's true feelings poured out in increasingly vicious terms, the family's reaction shifted from shock to disgust. Her carefully cultivated image of the devoted grandmother concerned about her family's welfare dissolved before the reality of her prejudice and cruelty. The pivotal moment came when Robert, who had been watching silently from the side, finally stepped forward. "Stop it, Mom," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Just stop." Martha turned to him in surprise. "Robert, you of all people understand the importance of family legacy." "What I understand," he interrupted, "is that you've been manipulating all of us for years. What you're saying about Lily now, it's the same thing you've been saying about Tyler, isn't it? That he's not good enough? Not Collins material?" Martha's eyes widened. "That's different. Tyler is blood. He just needs firmer guidance." "It's not different," Robert said. "You sort everyone into worthy and unworthy. You did it to Dad's second wife, to Aunt Grace, to countless others. And now you're doing it to my niece and my son." In that moment, Robert became our fourth ally, standing publicly against Martha's toxic behavior for the first time. Martha, sensing her control of the narrative slipping, made a desperate final attempt to reassert authority. "I see how it is," she said coldly. "You've all been turned against me after everything I've done for this family. Well, remember this when my will is read. Remember who owns the family properties, who controls the trusts, who has the power to determine your inheritances." It was her ultimate weapon, financial control, laid bare for everyone to see. But instead of cowing the family into compliance, as it had so many times before, her naked threat only confirmed what many had begun to suspect. Martha's love had always been transactional, conditional on absolute obedience. I stepped forward one last time, knowing that whatever happened next would define our family's future. "Mother," I said quietly, "real family can't be bought or sold. It isn't about blood or names or inheritances. Real family is built on love, respect, and care for one another." You can keep your money and your properties. We choose each other. I turned to James and Lily, who had moved to stand beside me. Let's go home. As we walked toward the door, Lily paused and turned back to face Martha. It was the first time she had directly addressed her grandmother since Christmas. I used to wish you would love me, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. I don't anymore. I feel sorry for you, because you'll never know what it feels like to have a real family. With quiet dignity, our family walked out, followed by Grace, Allison, Diane, and, after a moment's hesitation, Robert and his children. Behind us, we could hear Martha's voice rising in rage, demanding that people stay, threatening consequences, her carefully constructed mask finally shattered beyond repair. As we stood in the driveway, surrounded by the family members who had chosen connection over control, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying my entire life. Martha would likely continue her attempts to regain control, but her power over us, over all of us, was finally, irrevocably broken. 1 year later, our living room buzzes with activity as we prepare for our new Christmas tradition. The tree, decorated with a chaotic mix of handmade and store-bought ornaments, stands in the corner, nothing like Martha's color-coordinated perfection, but infinitely more meaningful. The smell of gingerbread cookies fills the air, and holiday music plays softly in the background. Is this straight? James asks, holding up the handmade banner Lily created that reads, Family by Choice. A little higher on the left, Lily directs, now 14 and standing taller, both physically and emotionally. The past year has transformed her from a frightened child into a more confident teenager, though the journey hasn't been without setbacks. After the confrontation at Martha's house, we committed to healing as our primary family project. We continued therapy, both individually and as a family. Lily worked through her abandonment fears with Dr. Leiter's family. Rivera, gradually coming to understand that Martha's rejection reflected Martha's limitations, not Lily's worth. You know what Dr. Rivera said that really helped? Lily told me one evening as we folded laundry together. She said that some people can only love what they can control. And that's not really love at all. Martha hadn't given up easily. In the months following the family gathering, she made several attempts to regain control, threatening legal action for alienation, sending flying monkeys to plead her case, even showing up at my school once despite the restraining order, resulting in a police warning. But her power had been fundamentally broken. With each attempt, fewer family members were willing to serve as her messengers or enablers. Eventually, the attempts became less frequent as Martha found herself increasingly isolated. Robert and his family began their own healing journey. He and Diane entered couples therapy to repair the damage caused by years of Martha's triangulation. Tyler, finally free from his grandmother's constant criticism, began to flourish with proper support for his ADHD. I never realized how much I was parroting Mom's beliefs, Robert admitted during a recent dinner at our home. About everything marriage, parenting, success, I'm having to re-examine all of it. The most unexpected joy has been reconnecting with previously estranged relatives. Aunt Grace has become a regular visitor, filling our home with her warmth and stories about our father's early years. Cousins we barely knew growing up now attend our gatherings, creating the extended family support system Martha had systematically dismantled. For Lily, the healing has been profound. Her adoption anniversary in September became a particularly meaningful celebration this year, with a special ceremony where family members and close friends each added a bead to a necklace symbolizing her chosen family connections. Family isn't just who gives birth to you, she said during the ceremony, her voice clear and strong. It's who shows up, who stays, who loves you on your worst days, not just your best ones. My own journey toward healing has been more complicated. Cutting ties with a parent, even an abusive one, carries a unique grief mourning, not just the relationship you had, but the one you always hoped for, and now know you'll never have. I still catch myself sometimes, I confessed to James late one night, thinking maybe if I'd explained better, or been more patient, or found the right words, she could have changed. That's not on you, Sam, he reminded me, holding me close. Some people aren't capable of the kind of love we need from them. That's their limitation, not yours. Learning to release the guilt and self-blame has been my biggest challenge. The voice in my head, which sounds suspiciously like Martha, still occasionally whispers that I failed as a daughter, that cutting her off was selfish, that a good daughter would have tried harder. In those moments, I've learned to counter with evidence. The joy in our home now, Lily's recovery, the healthier relationships we're building with extended family, the peace of living without constant judgment and criticism. Martha remains estranged from us, a bittersweet reality we've had to accept. The restraining order expired after a year, but we maintained our boundaries, making it clear that any contact would require genuine acknowledgement of her behavior and professional help conditions she has refused to meet. We hear occasional updates through family members. Martha sold her large house and moved to a retirement community in Florida, where she's likely building a new network of people who don't yet see behind her mask. I sometimes wonder if she's capable of reflection, if she ever questions her choices or misses the family she's lost. "Do you think Grandma Martha is lonely?" Lily asked recently as we prepared for today's gathering. "Probably," I answered honestly, "but loneliness itself doesn't change people. Only recognizing why you're lonely and being willing to change your behavior can do that." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "I used to think she hated me specifically. Now I think she'd have found a reason to reject anyone who didn't fit her idea of perfect." This insight that Martha's behavior wasn't personal but pathological has been crucial to all our healing. The understanding that some relationships cannot be saved, that walking away can sometimes be an act of self-preservation rather than failure, has freed us to build something healthier. Our doorbell rings, interrupting my reflections. Guests begin arriving: Aunt Grace with her famous pecan pie, Robert and his family bringing gifts and side dishes, friends who have become like family, all gathering to celebrate the holidays in a way that feels authentic and warm. As I watch Lily move confidently through the room, laughing with her cousins and helping younger children with their activities, I feel a profound gratitude for how far we've come. The shy, traumatized child who packed her bags after her birthday disaster has blossomed into a resilient, compassionate young woman. Later, after dinner, Lily hands me a small package wrapped in newspaper comics, her signature wrapping style. "I made this for you," she says with a hint of shyness. Inside is a simple wooden picture frame with mother-of-pearl inlay, clearly handmade in her school woodshop class. It holds a photo of the three of us from last summer's beach trip, all sunburned and grinning. On the back, she's burned an inscription: "To my real mom, love, your real daughter." I pull her into a hug, too moved for words. The journey has been painful, breaking generational patterns of toxicity always is. We've lost relationships we once valued and faced challenges no family should have to navigate. But in that loss, we've found something infinitely more valuable: the freedom to define family on our own terms, to build connections based on love rather than obligation, to protect what matters most. As I look around at our gathered chosen family, I realize that the greatest gift Martha inadvertently gave us was this: by forcing us to fight for our family, she helped us discover its true meaning. Some wounds may never fully heal, some relationships cannot be saved, but in choosing what and whom to protect, in drawing boundaries that honor our worth and our values, we find the strength not just to survive but to flourish. Thank you all for listening to my story today. I hope it might help someone else find the courage to stand up for themselves or their children when faced with toxic family dynamics. If you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of healing and transformation, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose your own family sometimes. Sending love and strength to all of you navigating complicated family relationships this holiday season. Remember, family is who loves you for exactly who you are.